Members of the public are for Ghanaians and people living in Ghana. So, in line with Article 17 on non-discrimination, if we are organizing a public event, then there's a need for us to make sure that everybody who attends the event is able to participate in that event.
I think generally we haven't done well at all. I mean, you notice for most functions organized by the state, be it the swearing in or the sessional address, you hardly find, a sign language interpreter at these functions. Of course, you may find the state-owned television, featuring a sign language interpreter, but for the majority of, the vulnerable amongst us, the physically challenged amongst us who may be present at these occasions, they are completely cut off.
Even on national television, with the exception of the Ghana television, which interprets news and a few programs in sign language, no other program and TV stations reach out to the deaf.
GTV has led the pack, the news, and they have been very consistent and they must be congratulated. And we should encourage others. So this is something that the National Media Commission, I believe, will take up and also ensure that when they grant licenses and when they monitor, they make sure that the broadcasters and even National Communication Authority, this should be something that should be a precondition for granting a license.
In fact, the media houses, how many media houses use the sign language to kind of bridge the gap of information between the deaf and then those who can hear?
Bishop Ajinasari has a wonderful TV station on Multi-TV called The Precious TV. Although there are no sign interpreters on it yet, he believes this documentary is creating the awareness enough for them to consider the deaf.
I want to say that we are sorry we weren't considerate in the past to make provision for the deaf, but the tide is changing.
Despite being neglected, a group of deaf people numbering over 50 continue to meet at this classroom of the Osu Presby Girls' School to worship God in their own style. The Christian Mission Church for the Deaf was established by the first deaf missionary in Africa in 1957. He was called Reverend Dr. Andrew Foster and came from Alabama, USA. He established this church along with the first deaf school in Africa, which started in this same classroom and now developed to be the Mampong School for the Deaf. When I joined their service, the head pastor was preaching in sign language. His theme, quote, "Not letting one's disability hinders them from knowing God," unquote.
People who have not hear or see Jesus or God, how best we can send the message across to them.
They worshipped and praised God and offered cash to support the work of God. The worship team is led by these three-member choir in orange t-shirts. They had an appeal for other religious leaders, including Reverend Dr. Mensa Otabel, Bishop Ajinasari, and Reverend Dr. Stephen Wangam of the Assemblies of God Church, and the society at large.
God spoke to me to meet Pastor Otabel, Mensa Otabel, for help. This is a great opportunity that I can talk to Pastor Mensa Otabel, because I know he will hear on TV. Pastor Ajinasari, a Praise Chapel, International Church. And again, the pastor of Assemblies of God Church, Pastor Wingam. We want the church to try and come to our aid.
But the religious leaders have an assurance for them.
In fact, when you told me this revelation that this probably pastor who is pastoring deaf people said he had it was humbling for me. The Commission for the Physically Challenged approached me last year. They want me to be an ambassador, for them, and it's taken me a little while to actually give them an answer. But I think this is coming to confirm that I think we need to come on board. So especially using our influence to cause an awakening in the Christendom, so that we can pay attention to our brothers who are deaf.
In our local parlance, it says that when you forget and go back for it, it's not wrong. So I think that as a leader, we will all do sankofa and correct the mistake. Thank you.
Any religion, any missionary people to come to our aid. Many of us too, we are not working. We've been here for the past 50 years now.
We feel very disappointed and regretted that maybe we are not Ghanaians. Really, we are not happy with the government. They have taken the deaf people out from the scene.
The government also assures of light at the end of the tunnel.
We'll be drawing guidelines which we would distribute and give to. We'll start with government institutions, so all the MDAs, so that at least progressively, when MDAs are planning events, especially at the local government level, at the regional level, and at the national level, when we're planning events, we are able to ensure there's a sign language and interpretation, and we even have to learn a bit. So I've learned a bit. Like, how are you?
I think it's good to put in place policies, but it's also good to lead by example. And I think that I would go with the practical, leading by example, using, I mean, if we really are serious as a country, if we really want to bring everybody on board, we should practicalize, the things that we do. We should involve them more. And I think that setting the example, having interpreters at state functions that are organized by government would set the tone.
I think they have a right to know what is going on and to participate as best they can. Sign language should be available at wherever possible necessary.
When you go to the hospitals, you don't have sign interpreters there, and it's difficult for the hearing, either the doctor or the nurse, to communicate with the deaf person. And so many people died because of that.
Healthcare is critical. And so what we did last year was to draw out a plan, start in Greater Accra. We've identified about 5 hospitals where we would want to train our social welfare officers who work in the hospital, train them on sign language.
Following this documentary, the Minister for Gender, Children and Social Protection, Nana Oyelitha, has assured that beginning this year, she will provide sign language interpreter at every 6 March celebrations and other national events.
We commit to that as a Ministry for Gender, Children and Social Protection to ensure we have a sign language during 6th of March for this year.
However, the situation is not all gloomy for the deaf in Ghana. A few institutions are blazing the trail to assist the deaf to know the Word of God. The Church of Christ, the Jehovah's Witness, the Church of Pentecost, and even more recently, the International Central Gospel Church are a few I noticed are making the attempt to reach out to the deaf through a sign language interpreter in church.
We believe that the gospel is for all. You have to reach every person to get the gospel. So we have trained more people in signing.
This is a joint service of the Church of Christ on New Year Sunday. The deaf had joined the hearing to worship.
Savior, I surrender.
The church has a separate congregation for the deaf, just as it has for the English, French, Twi, Ga, Ewe, and other congregations.
I want to encourage or tell other church people who want to start. They should have started long ago, but it's better late than never. They should begin going to the deaf people or disabled people and show a genuine love.
But they will not want to be used, just as anybody will not want to be used.
Here, praises and worship as well as preaching are all done with the deaf's full participation.
Most of the deaf people we have here, I would say, do not belong to a family at all. They have been totally rejected.
You need to show genuine love to them.
All the people sitting on this entire row are with deaf disability. Wedding ceremonies are all organized for the deaf, just as they are for the hearing.
The whole thing is trust. When the deaf person trusts you, even in the ground, in the grave, they will come to you.
I was thrilled to discover that there were two people who were deaf and at the same time blind.
One of them, the moment she became blind, the father divorced the mother. And the other guy too, almost the same thing. The moment, both of them were not born deaf-blind. They grew up to 11 and 12 years before they became deaf-blind through disease or illness.
Those churches who are denying them the word of God, denying them the services of the church, are doing great disservice to the hearing impaired.
Other deaf people have volunteered to guide them by holding their hands and signing to them what is being preached.
Lord, help us to keep as we have planned in our hearts.
If you don't have the Bible, if you don't know the Bible, the world look dark.
Amazingly, the deaf population at the Nsawam Road of the Church of Christ is over 300, making it arguably one of the highest in the world, if not the highest.
When I joined the Church of Christ in 1985, I met the church having sign language interpreters. Then also our largest congregation at Nsawam Road, Accra, they have the biggest deaf congregation in the country, if not in the world.
At this church, all ushers and many church members can sign. This makes it easier for the hearing to interact with the deaf after worship.
Especially the bigger churches, they must try. It is not difficult learning the sign language. You must try and get interpreters.
On the next Sunday, the number of deaf worshippers had shot up to about 500. Many had informed their friends of my intention to visit, hence the massive attendance. 27-year-old deaf Eric Sape, who aspires to be a reverend minister, preached.
Proverbs chapter 19, verse 21. But you must rely on who? Rely on God. Then everything will be successful for you. If you think yourself, I myself, you fail.
My father had a friend who could sign, who could sign. So he was helping me at church. But sometimes when he traveled, it means I will be sitting down in church and there wouldn't be any interpretation for me. So I had other friends there who were copying. Sometimes they will record the preaching and everything, or they will write the preaching for me. Later, I came to the church here at Sound Road Church of Christ. When I realized that when I came, I saw that many of my friends at school are here.
After church, he and other members of the congregation spent hours interacting and socializing.
The Ghana National Association of the Deaf Office. Because over there were deaf people who were learning arts there. So he was put there to become a teacher of the deaf.
As a national service person, Eric is very hardworking at the office and likable at home.
But as I work there, I see more frustrations that my brothers and sisters who are deaf are facing.
There are 6 people among the deaf congregation here at Church of Christ who were all Muslims but now attend the Church of Christ due to lack of sign language interpreters in the mosque.
My friend invited me here one day and he said I should come to Church of Christ, and I asked him why should I come to Church of Christ. He said I should just come and listen to what they are saying.
They have taken it up and they are responding to their needs, and so they will definitely go there, because when they go, they have the opportunity to worship and be respected in that sense. And I congratulate a church like that for doing what they are doing.
If there is any member of the Muslim community who is hearing impaired, and because of that deformity alone, he was denied the glory of God, he was denied the right to be given the message so that he can guide himself.
They have not created a friendly relationship, with them.
Razak Isifu is one of such Muslims who have now abandoned the mosque for the Church of Christ due to the presence of sign language here.
When I was young, I was a Muslim. But when I go to the mosque, I don't understand what they do over there. So when I went to school, I saw many people going to church, and then they were having so many interpreters over there. So I decided to join them. And when I completed the school, I came here too.
Even the point at which they are in school, knowing that they are members of our society who are coming out from school and they have certain needs, how do we integrate them in society and make them live a life worthy of the respect that God has given to them as human beings.
Rather unfortunate, we've been able to identify some few ones who, because they do not understand the message that is being delivered in the mosque, have been absenting themselves from the mosque. I think this is a better opportunity. It's not too late. We can start initiating something for them.
He will plead with them if they can get an interpreter over there, so that the deaf people who are Muslim can benefit from their prayers.
The Pentecost Church is also following in this direction, as well as the Jehovah's Witness.
We saw the need. We found them to be an integral part of society, and the command is that everybody must hear the gospel.
I am a member of the Church of Pentecost from my childhood, but I go to church and I don't hear what goes on in the church. So from there I decided to have a deaf ministry under the Church of Pentecost.
The church sees it as an obligation.
Evangelism is our life. Evangelism is our food.
The pioneer of the deaf ministry of the Pentecost Church says he feels fulfilled.
I feel happy and I feel fulfilled to work for God and allow other deaf people to also hear the gospel of God.
We can look at what we are doing and be proud.
The Pentecost Church assures that it will consider sign interpreters in all worship centers.
We have sign language interpreters only on our national television programs. In our local churches, we've not come to that stage yet. I think that as we grow the deaf ministry, we will look at that as well.
It is clear that as a society, we have all neglected a part of us.
We the deaf people also need to hear the word of God.
Some of our priests, some of our sisters have learned sign language, and they are the ones who we are now putting together so that they can start thinking of how to